Take a look at this. Please like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share this video to all of your friends. Now, let's get into the video. Alright guys, so welcome to today's video, and today we will work on this One Piece game right here, but I sadly announce that today's topic is going to be, the data store aspect, loading the characters, saving the clothes, etc. So that's the topic for today's video, and I know that I wanted to work on the body, but I have to postpone. So is that the term? Is that the word for that? So I have to postpone that because I have my exams pretty soon. And yeah, so that's the reason why I'm dropping this video, because this is a lot more easier to do, first of all. Also less work. I'm honest with you guys, it is less work for me. And many of you have been suggesting this, and therefore I'm gonna do this one, okay? And I'm gonna postpone the body thing to the next episode. I hope you guys are okay with that. Alright, so in the last video we have added the pants option right here. Here, accessories, pants, so we almost have everything we want. Yeah. Alright. And body is still needs to be made. Alright. So let's work on the data store, on saving our clothes and loading them later on. So how does that work? Let's go inside of the service script right here and let's do the following. So let's first of all create the values which store the values or the names of those shirts we have currently equipped or we are currently wearing. It means every time a new player joins, we are creating some values for a player, which is supposed to store the clothing or the editing information. So information regarding hair, the accessories, the clothes, etc. guys. So that's the first thing we want to create. So game players, player edit means every time a player is added, then we want to receive this player. So this argument or parameter right here is our player we are receiving, and this player is currently being newly added, being freshly added to the game. So that's what happens right here. So we have gotten this player right here, and we now want to create those stats I was talking about for that player. So let's first of all create a folder which stores all of these values. Let's call this one data. Let's store this one directly inside of that player. Oh my god. Of course, instead of data, we want this thing to be a folder because there's no instance called data. I was just, add some other point of my mind, but alright. So, what we are doing right here is we are basically creating a new variable, which is an instance which is newly created, and this instance is a folder which is stored inside of the player. That's what happens here. And now we are accessing this variable right here, folder and .name, so we are basically referring to one of its properties, and the name is a property of that instance, of that folder. Alright, so sorry, I just had to go AFK. So we are referring to a property called name, so basically to the name of this folder, and we are going to set this one to data. And now we are going to create those values which are going to be stored inside of that folder. So our first value will be, we need a value for each aspect right here. So for the hair, for the accessory, for the shirt, for the pants, and the body will be done later because we do not have it at this point. So hair And I'm going to create a string value for that, because we are going to store the name of the hair. And therefore we need a string value to store the string. So a string value, which is going to be put inside of the folder, and yeah, we're going to set the name to hair. And now we can just repeat everything. Accessory instance new. So just copy this one. Accessory name. Go. There we go. So we have now created our values right here. So once we hit play, we are able to see them right here. As you can see, they are currently empty. So how do we fix that? Well, let's add some default values for them. So I'm gonna call this one hair1, so I'm just picking the first hair right here. Now accessory, probably accessory, no. Okay, so I'm gonna do bandana or something like that. Bandana. Short name, no, short value. All right, there we go. So these are our values with their default values, and now we need to add a saving mechanism and a loading mechanism, guys. So that's the next step. I'm gonna create this p-call right here, so let me just quickly explain what a p-call is. Here I have set this thing up. So we should use this p-call, especially when working with data stores, because, well, data stores tend to cause some trouble. So they tend to cause warnings, errors, whatsoever, because, well, maybe the data store service is currently not available, or you have done something wrong, or data is corrupted whatsoever. But we will need this p-call, which is going to wrap up the loading mechanism, because we are accessing the data store service at that point. So means when working with the data store service, you should wrap it inside of a p-call. Means, well, once you wrap it inside of a p-call, those errors will not break the whole script as they usually would. So remember, even apart from this example, so when you work on a script and, well, you have forgot a character somewhere or whatsoever, well, when you have something which causes an error, then the rest of the script breaks as well. And what this p-call does is, when you encounter an error inside of that p-call, then the script will just go on. That's an advantage we are going to make use of, and that's why we are going to wrap this loading mechanism inside of a p-call. That's the idea behind it. Let me just add this ESS, so data store service, game, get service, data store service. And now let's just do the following. So locally loaded, ESS, get async. No. Get data store. So I forgot to create a data store. OP game test. I'm just gonna give it a random name. Come on. Test. Get async user ID. So I'm gonna explain this in a bit, but do not worry. So what does happen up here first of all? So we are creating a new variable, which first of all stores this one. So this thing right here refers to the data store service, which is responsible for storing data. Certain data we are passing through some functions, which I am going to showcase later. And well, after referring to this one, we are calling this function upon it called getDataStore. So we are basically saying that we want to receive a data store with a certain name, and the certain name is being entered right here. So we are basically receiving a data store, or we are creating a new data store called OP game test. That's what happens up here. And what happens down here is that we are once again storing this whole thing inside of a variable, and we are referring to our freshly created data store, and we are calling a function called getAsync, which gets the entries, or the entry, for a specific key. So let's say that you have, I don't know, maybe 4 entries inside of your data store, and the first key is 1, the second key is 2, the third key is 3, and the fourth key is 4. And when using this getAsync, in order to access one of these, you would need to, well, make sure that you have a certain key in order to pass the desired entry. Means if you want to access the third entry of your data store, then you would need the key 3 in order to access it. So you are unable to access the third entry with having, or by having a key called 1 or anything. So the keys create some kind of, well, structure inside of it and are necessary to, identify certain entries. And we are using a individual. How do you pronounce it in English, guys? So some unique key. Okay, so this key right here is unique, and why, you may ask? Because this is the player's user ID, and every user ID only exists once, and therefore it is unique. So we are going to store the player's data inside of the data store by using the player's user ID as a key, and we are going to, well, receive the data by looking for an entry which has the player's user ID as a key as well. So that's the idea behind it. Alright, so this basically just receives the stored data, so the data which is stored on this key. And now this data can either be empty, means there is nothing stored, or it can be not empty, means there is something stored. And we are going to check for that. Well, I thought about checking for that, but there is no need to do that, because if you would check for no data, means if there is no data which has been stored, then what would be the next step you would do? You would probably add some default values to it, and well, we have already done it, because so we have already done it, and therefore we do not need to do it once again. So we can just work with the other case. So if there is data, then we are going to override the data with those default values we currently have. So if loaded, then we are going to loop through loaded. So loaded is going to be a table which contains the whole data. So every bit of data we have saved is inside of a table, and we are going to loop through that table. But before we loop through it, we need to do something else. So we need to work on the saving mechanism, because, well, trying to encode a table without even creating it might be a bit difficult, guys. So let's just try to create the table format we are going to use for saving. So I'm going to use a function called save right here, and this one requires an argument called PLR, stands for player. And the first step is to create a table. So I'm going to create one called as, and this table is going to be empty. That's the first step. Now the second step is to fill up that table with all of the information we want to save. So how do we do that? We will loop through this data folder right here. So that's the first thing we want to do, because, well, at the end, we want this table to contain all of the data. And by all of the data, so when we speak of all of the data, we are basically talking about the stats, so the value of our stats. So that's the data we want to save. And therefore, we need to loop through this folder in order to access all of these values. But that's what we want to do. So for IB, in pairs, PLR, wait for child, data, get children. So that's what we want to do. And do not worry, I'm going to explain this one as well. All right, so first of all, what is this thing? So you gotta imagine that this loop right here loops through a certain instance, or, well, it can loop through an instance. No, never mind. It basically loops through a table, okay? And, well, that's all I gotta say. That's all I have to say about it. Let me just try to emphasize the actual meaning behind it. So I'm gonna create I'm just gonna create a random table called XY, just for educational purposes. So I'm gonna delete this one afterwards. On. Okay, so that's it. I don't want to create anything more. So I'm gonna try and explain how this loop works by trying to use this table right here. So basically, everything what's inside of these brackets determines the table which is going to be looped through. In our case, we are referring to our data folder down here, and we're calling this get children on. It means we want to receive all of the components, means these things right here, all of the children. So ROBLOX calls these children. So we want to receive all of the children of this instance in, well, some kind of table format. That's what happens right here. So we are basically receiving a table with all of the children of that instance. And now we are looping through them. So what is I? What is V? So I is this one. I is the index. V is the value. So you're able to find a value by looking for its index. That's all I gotta say about it. So when we are looping through this one right here, and we are at this point, then I would be as and V would be 2. Down here, I would be K and V would be KS. So that's all I gotta say, and I have to admit that these easy explanations are the best, in my opinion, because they emphasize the actual meaning behind it, and they are not too confusing, I think. And I hope that you are able to understand what I was trying to say. All right, so that's all about these these looping methods right here. So we are just looping through this data folder to loop through these stats values, and we are going to add every stat to this table. So how are we going to do that? We are basically going to do the following. So si. So I have to think for a moment. All right, there we go. I think that this is actually it. That's all I gotta do. Now let me try and use the set async. So I should look up how the arguments inside are, key and then okay. So first of all, the key and then the value we want to store, which is s. Okay. So that's our format. You gotta imagine that we are basically having this table right here, and we are going to add this entry to this index. And this index, is a number in this case. And you gotta imagine the table we are receiving like this. So let's say that this is the table we are receiving, okay? And probably not like this, but you have some entries right here which are going to be your instances, and once you try to refer to the index, you will receive the entry number, I'd say. So you will receive the entry. So the entry or the number or just the place in which they're currently at. So this is obviously the first entry means first, second, third, fourth, and so on. And that's what happens when you try to refer to these indexes. So we are at our first loop. We are, of course, referring to the first instance inside of this table, okay? Therefore, I is 1. And the first entry of this table is going to be the data of the first instance of your table, of your data table. And now, after passing this code, or passing this line, everything repeats itself. Now I is 2, and now we are at our second instance. And the same thing happens, but at this time, we are overwriting the second spot of this table. And everything just goes on. So that's the idea behind it. And what this thing is that we are basically saying this is the index, so the name is the index, and the name equals the value. So I'm gonna explain why I've done it when working on this load system right now. So let's just use this for IV and pairs loop once again for our loaded table, loaded do, and now we can just we could just do the following. So wait, let me just let me print out this table just to see how this format is. So just to see how this has worked out. Let me add some events. So I'm gonna add this bind to close event, which fires when a game is close to be shut down. And as you can see, I'm using this for IV in pairs loop once again, but at this time I'm looping through the player list and I'm calling the save function on every player. So that's what happens down here. The save function is of course going to save everything. And yeah, well, I probably forgot to turn on the this service. Huh, perfect. As you can see, it actually does save. So I've just overwritten this accessory value with something totally random, and it did save, and that's pretty good. All right, now let's get back to this format thing. So as you can see, when you open up this table, you are receiving those indexes, which are set equal with tables. Okay, and these tables are these things right here. So after looping through this loaded table, we need to loop through these means these values, and these values are always these tables. So for I2, V2 in pairs V do, and now we can just easily check for I2. So I2 is the index of this table, which is this thing right here. And now we can just basically check if I2 equals well, or if there is a stat which has the same name as I2, means if there's a stat called hair, so we can just easily look for that. So folder find first child I2, then so if there's a stat called if there's a stat which has been saved, basically, so that's what this thing is trying to express. So if there's a stat which has been saved, then override the saved value with the existing one. So V2 is the saved one. That's it, guys. That's it with this data store. Right, so yeah. Okay, it did not save, or it did not load properly, or yeah, I don't know. Okay, there we go. All right, so it did save these two things. Now let me leave and join again, just to see if this has worked. And yeah, there we go. Okay, so we have now got our working data store. So how do we connect this to our editor. So how does this work? All right, so first thing we gotta do is, well, every time when we change something, change hair, accessories, shirts, pants, whatsoever, then we of course need to change one of these as well. That's the first requirement. Let's do it right here. So let me add a new folder right here, a new variable, I mean, local data, player, weight per child, data. So data, here, value is going to be our value. So we've basically created a new variable up here which refers to our data folder, and down here we are referring to our data folder, then to our hair stats value, and then to its property called value, and then we are basically setting this stats value to the hair we are trying to equip. We gotta repeat this step for every other editable aspect right here. To our accessory, and also to our shirt, also to our pants. All right, let's see how this has worked. So let's pay close attention to hair. Hair 2, hair 3, and hair 1. As you can see, it does change. Now let's try it out for all of the other ones right here. Yeah, top hat, there we go. Hands, jeans, shirts, yeah, perfect. All right, so these should save now. Let's see if they have been saved. And there we go. So these have saved, guys. Our last thing we gotta do is, well, we are able to influence our stats by selecting some options inside of the editor, which is totally normal. We have got a working data store system, and our stats do load. Our last thing is to, well, manifest our loaded stats by actually loading the hair, loading the accessories, loading the clothes, whatsoever. So we need to make them load. So how does that work? As you can see, we have this player edit thing right here. Edit, of course, has to do with it. So once the player has been added to the game, we are not just going to load the player's data, but we are also going to load the player's appearance, which is of course influenced by the loaded data. And there's one significant thing we gotta do, and that is to use this character edit event. So once the character has been added, then we are going to take actions regarding the appearance, guys. So let's do that. So that's going to be about the hair. This one is going to be about the accessories, of course, and I'm leaving those untouched on purpose because I'm gonna explain what we are going to do with them in a bit. Just be a little bit more patient. All right. So we are almost done. There's now this last thing, and that's about these dummies, or this dummy text right here. So what does this do, or what is this supposed to do? So this dummy thing is supposed to represent the character we are going to take the actions on. In this case, it is our dummy right here, but in a regular case, or in the normal case, when being in-game and being able to walk around freely, besides the editor, our character is going to be our player's character. And that's what you need to understand, because inside of this editor, this is going to be the dummy. But outside of the editor means in the actual game later on, it is going to be the player's character. But I'm going to explain that once the time has come, which is probably going to be in a few episodes. And yeah, so what do we need to do? We need to refer to this dummy inside of the workspace. That's all we gotta do. Workspace, dummy. Now, everywhere where this orange text is. There we go. And now let's see if this has worked. Let's hope so. Okay, did not. Probably because reset. Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah, I do understand. Okay, never mind this character edit thing. I'm going to get back to it later when we are going to add this character loading thing inside of the actual game and not inside of the editor, because the editor is a different case at this point. Let's just leave it. Let's just leave it as it is, guys. Be happy with this one. As you can see, it does work. Our appearance is being loaded successfully. And, well, yeah, that's it with the video. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for your overwhelming support recently. Leave a like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, share this video to all of your friends, and give me feedback in the comment section, guys. As I've already said, sorry for this shorter video, but I have to study for some exams. And yeah, take care. See you in the next video, guys.